Well, hello there. Happy Saturday morning if you are joining me live. Sorry for starting a little bit late today. Had a little uh technology issue. Oops, wrong way. That little guy I couldn't get rid of, and he was driving me insane, and then I realized I was late. So, sorry for that. My apologies. Welcome to Travel Marketeering Saturday sessions. Yay! It's been a minute. Thank you guys for allowing me to take a little bit of a break. I know you're still marketing away, and I love that. So, very excited to be here today. We're going into the new year. I mean, we're finishing out 2024 and we've had some good sessions. We've done some deep work, and now we're going to do a little bit more. And we're going to cover some topics that we haven't talked about before. We're going to talk about things that we have talked about before, but maybe in a different way, or maybe you are in a different mindset at this moment. So. I'm very, very excited about what today holds and what the future holds in these travel marketing sessions. And I'm just so tickled that you're here. Again, if you're joining live, thank you for waking up this morning and saying, you know what, I'm going to do some travel marketeering. And if you're watching this on demand, I'm just glad you tuned in. So if you are joining me live, please use the Q&A, or you might be able to use the chat feature. I feel like we might have fixed it. If we haven't fixed it, we will fix it. Andrea and I were playing around with it and trying to see if we could make it work. So if you use Q&A or use the chat, just chat with us, chat with me. Sorry, not with us. It's only me today. But ask your questions. This is an interactive session. I'm going to be talking a lot about marketing and branding. I definitely can talk for hours on this subject, but it's always fun if you ask your questions. What thoughts do you have? What things are you concerned about? And if I talk about something that you're like, that's intriguing, please elaborate. I love that. And something that we started a few weeks back, and I just love it. If you agree with what I'm saying, if you feel it in your core, if you are so inspired, drop in the Q&A or the chat a TM for travel marketeering. It's like our version of amen for any kind of topic. It's definitely very exciting for me. So let's see. We've got a raised hand here. Hold on a second. Let me see here. Oops, it went down. All right. That's okay. Uh, it's okay if you raise your hand. I don't know how the audio is going to sound, but yeah. So let me hold on, I got to get orientated here. All right, and if you are joining me live, or if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, just for the YouTube channel, search for World Via Travel Network. You'll find our channel. You'll find lots of content, including all the previous episodes of the Travel Marketeering Saturday sessions. But if you are watching right now, drop in the Q&A, comments, chat, whatever. Let me know where you're watching from. And another little tidbit that might be helpful is how long have you been in your travel business? That is always very interesting. All right, today we're going to be talking about building your business brand, your travel business brand. It's a topic I talk about a lot. Uh, uh, it's something I find fascinating. I find brand very, very fascinating. And I'll talk a little bit about what brand is, but it's a topic that when many people refer to brand, they think of logos. They immediately go to logos. And that is only one component of brand. So we're going to talk more in today's session, whether you are just about to build your brand, or you already have a brand. I'm going to walk you through some things that will help you really set the scene for your brand. And also, if you have an existing brand, maybe get you to break down some of the things that are that should be part of your brand building that maybe you didn't do. Maybe you did go directly over to your logo and a font and colors and you're good, right? But some really at the core of what you're doing with your brand and your business and marketing your business, it really evolves around, do you have a well-defined brand? And does that brand work for you? So you could have a brand, but it might not serve you. So no matter where you're at in your journey with your brand, I think we're going to talk about some things that will give you an aha moment or cause you to think, okay, this is the step and this is where I'm at in this process, and this is what I need to finish, or this is what I need to go back and fill in. So, like I said, if you have any questions through the process, uh, definitely just drop it in the Q&A. And also at the end of this session, I'm going to document some of my notes on this session, as well as maybe some resources that I think will be helpful for everyone who's watching this. So, those of you who attended it live, I'm going to email that to you shortly after the session. And if you are watching on demand, we'll make sure there's a link to the notes post event. So that should be down in the description in within YouTube. Okay. All right, let's begin. So what is brand? So brand is, like I said, not just a logo, but it is the perception, this entity that you create that you are doing business from, and it is the perception of that entity. Doesn't that sound ambiguous? Ooh. Hmm. So it's the perception of that brand, that entity. And you talk about entity when you're talking about setting up your business and forming your legal entity. And that is a component. That's in the most case, that's the more in most cases, that's the practical start of your brand. But the perception is everything that you fill in through who are you targeting and how your brand acts in the world. And I always like to say marketing touches everything and everything is marketing because that not only keeps me in business, but it's also it's really true. From even the largest companies, the finance department, how it interacts with suppliers and vendors, there's a brand component. They can't communicate outside, or they shouldn't communicate out in the outside world without being a part of the brand. When you're hiring people to join your company, you are expressing your employer brand, which is an extension of your overall company brand. When someone shares a story, and I'm not talking about a social media story, but shares a story about their experience with your company, that is an expression of your brand. Now, you don't have a lot of control over that. I mean, you do in terms of how you deliver your service, but one of the focuses that you'd want to have with building your brand and evolving your brand over time is influencing the words, the way that somebody speaks about your brand. And it's also how you, as the business owner, show up to your brand, or your team members show up to your brand. That it's all encompassing, way more than a logo, right? So the brand is really thinking about that perception. And the reason why I want to land that point is that when you look at it as not just those visual cues and the visual system that you've created for your brand, it it becomes a little human. It becomes a little human that might grow to be a gigantic human. Um, but when you start thinking about it as this person, you can really start to identify key elements that make up the person. So the brand is everything. It's how your business shows up in the world. And once you define all of that, once you feel like you have created a solid system, solid structure to your brand, then it makes it easy for you to build out marketing campaigns, for you to train new team members, for you to for you to really act with confidence because you're following some rules that you've defined for your brand. Now, having said that, for those of you who have already done your brand work and you're looking at the session as a way to uh, identify where there might be opportunities to evolve your brand, evolve is a very important word, I believe, when it comes to building your brand and growing your brand. It is, if you really think about this, your brand as a being, an entity, we all grow, right? We all change. So it's okay for your brand to change, but you want it to be evolution, not revolution. And why I want to make that point is because if you go for revolution, then you start to lose that space in people's minds. They don't know as human beings, we want to categorize things. We want to know, we want to say, okay, this is that thing. And if it's constantly changing, and doesn't look like itself, it doesn't look like it just evolved, it can put people off and it can confuse people. And if you are a small company or you're just getting started, confusion is the enemy. Confusion is absolutely the enemy. So think about your brand as this entity, this living, breathing entity. It's going to grow, it's going to evolve, but it's not going to go from a 1 year old to a 50-year old. It's not going to do that. It's going to go through the years and it's going to evolve. And that is absolutely okay. So we within World Via Travel Network, we have thousands of agency owners and advisors. And some of them have been in business for decades. Some of them are just getting started. Some of them, it takes a year to 2 years before they get started. And one of the things that I see the what takes the I don't know, it stresses them out, and it causes unnecessary delay is feeling like they have to make decisions about their brand that are going to live forever. And that's not the case. The business that you start in the very beginning more than likely will evolve over time. I would say I'm pretty sure that it's going to evolve over time. And for past travel marketeering sessions, we've had people in the chat talking about how they started their business. Laura, who joined us a couple of months ago, she talked about how she started her business with a passion for Disney and she mastered it, but she wanted to evolve her business and move into European vacations for, if I remember this correctly, Gen X moms were the decision maker, and these were busy professionals that she takes out she takes her that what she relieves the pain that she relieves is that she helps those moms plan a phenomenal family vacation to Europe. So she started Disney, which is a very specific niche, and she started to evolve her business. And what she shared in a session that she joined me on, she said, I still sell Disney because people know me as Disney. They know my company as Disney, that we sell Disney. However, she has now taken on associate agents into her business where who they are the ones that are servicing those Disney inquiries. So she's been able to maintain what was driving her business for so long, and she's been able to evolve her brand to start to sell other things, and make her business even more profitable. So that's not just me saying that you can evolve. We've actually had someone on the show that has shared their experience with evolving their brand. And so I just wanted to let you know it's okay. It's absolutely okay. The things that we're going to talk about are really the things that, in one afternoon, you can sit down and start to jot your thoughts down. Or as we're talking about it, jot your thoughts down and let's see where the conversation goes. Because, in the conversation, meaning the conversation in your head, where the conversation goes, because you might have one of those aha moments as you're walking through some of the steps and things to consider. So let's get tucked in. Again, don't be shy, guys. I won't bite. Love any kind of questions that you have, or if there's any particular dilemmas that you're facing with your brand, the things that are niggling around in your mind. You're like, this is bothering me. So I have to get my notes out because I have a tendency to go on super tangents. All right, so let's talk about the three pillars of building a brand. And I want you to think about these, we say building a brand, right? I want you to think of these pillars as if one of these pillars is not fully considered, thought out, planned for, your the stability of your brand it's a little wobbly. Now, that does not mean you cannot do business. You can't, you absolutely can. But maybe maybe it take if you're the marketer in your business, it might take you a little bit longer to make decisions on, say, marketing campaigns, landing pages, or your email newsletter. Um, it could be that, or if you are working with freelancers or even a team or a new team in particular, it if we don't have these pillars established, then it might take a little bit longer for that freelancer to get the gist of what you're trying to communicate with your brand, or for the employee to understand how they can show up in the brand and be the brand. So the three pillars are brand strategy. Okay, so why are we doing this? Who do we do it for? Why are we doing this? What decisions do we need to make to define our brand and build this entity, this person, this little human. Then we're going to get into the brand identity, and that is where we're going to talk about visual elements and what needs to be there for this brand to have an identity, for this little human to have identity. And then the last one is brand marketing. So how does this brand come to life in the world? Okay. How do people interact with this brand? How do we get new customers? Yeah, where do we find them? Okay. So we've got strategy, identity, and marketing. Okay. All the three pillars for building your brand. Now, let's talk about the brand strategy. So, w the brand strategy is what we're doing today. We're really talking about brand strategy. In next week's session, we're going to talk about brand identity. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about brand identity today. We are going to talk about brand identity, but we're really going to get into those visual elements, the visual cues for the brand next week. And then after that, we're going to go into brand marketing through a series of sessions, talking about your website. We're gonna talk about website. We're gonna talk about social media. We're gonna talk about advertising, all the ways that your brand comes to life and lives. So today we're really doing the strategy conversation, or we're having the strategy conversation. Now, the I'm sorry, I'm moving my windows around here. Sorry about that. Uh, there we go. All right. So let's talk about the human brand. Okay. If today, if you have a brand already, if you've established a brand already, if they were a human, what would they look like? And this is not your target customer, your ideal client, your customer avatar. This is you as a brand. And I like doing an exercise when I'm doing competitive analysis. I like to do, I like to think about my competitors as superheroes, because superheroes, they're very branded, right? Think of Green Lantern, think about Batman, think about Wonder Woman. If you think about any of those superheroes, do you think of colors? Do you think of visual elements? Do you think about the voice? Do you think about "Hi, I'm Batman"? Yeah, like the voice. That's a very, very particular voice, right? So superheroes are a great way to think about brand. And I like to create battle cards when I'm doing competitive analysis. I'm kind of jumping the queue a little bit on the brand strategy pieces, but I want you if I take my competitors and say you look at five or six, and I start to jot down the things that they're known for, and their personality, um, things that the things that they say, how they interact on social media, things like that. I kind of jot those down because I like to do a little comparison, but I create these little battle cards, and it's fun. It's cute. I don't like. I'm not going to battle with my competitors, but I want to be aware of them, right? So when I am starting the journey of building a brand, I look at the competitive landscape, and that is not to knock them off. It is not to copy them, but I want to be aware of what they look like and identify where there might be gaps. Because if I'm going to show up, if I'm going to build a brand and I'm going to show up looking like a copy of a brand that has already been around, chances are I'm not going to win. I might not even make it because someone else has already been there. And if they can't tell the difference between me and them, then problem. That's a problem, right? So I do this competitive analysis. I sketch out. It could be stick figures and capes and whatever, but I'll incorporate some of their colors. I just especially if I'm doing some of my planning stage work here. I'll maybe a brand has gold, blue, and uh, gold, blue. I don't know why I need a third color there. Gold, blue, and red. Okay. So I'm gonna take some markers or colored pencils, and I'm gonna just add some little touches to my battle card that helps me remember that this brand Y, is red, gold, and blue. All right. There's that one, and then this one is green and black. And just it. So when I look at it, not only look at my document or if they're index cards or post-it notes, and I've got little maybe keywords or things that I think are points of they're differentiators between the different brands. Then I also have a visual cue of okay, green and black, red, gold, and blue. Okay, got it. And then that helps me think, okay, or helps me evaluate. Now I might like red, gold, and blue. I might like that. And that's okay. I can definitely do it, but maybe I do a different shade. So again, that gets into the visual piece, and I don't want to stay on that, but I'm kind of getting back to what does your brand human look like? And it is really just about what if it was a superhero, then what would its superhero traits be? What would its superpowers? Sorry, not traits. But what would its powers be? And I think that's a fun way to really define who you are today. Now, if you're just building your brand, who do you want that superhero to be? Now, when we start to talk about building a brand story, which we will, but you'll hear me talk about think about the hero's journey, and you want your customer to be the hero. If you go back to the olden days of businesses, they're like, "Oh, we've been around since 1896, and our we were founded by blah 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 blah." Okay, what's in it for me is the question that I ask. That was such an old school institutional way to tell a brand story. Today, it's what's in it for me, and that needs to be very, very clear to your customers and your potential customers. So you're when you're talking about your brand as being the superhero, and that's really just for let's paint a visual picture because your customer is your hero and you are ultimately their guide. You are their Yoda. You are their Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can tell I might like Star Wars. Well, you are the fairy godmother, right? Whatever analogy you want to use. But in this context, when we think about our brand being a human, what do they look like and what are their superpowers? If you know what your brand's superpowers are, drop that in the Q&A if you're watching live, or if you're watching it on demand in the comments. But let me know what your brand's superpowers are. Now, this is a good point to talk about, especially with travel businesses and new business in general, especially the consultative businesses. I am a firm believer, and this is coming from a serial entrepreneur. Not only have I been in marketing for donkey's years, I've also been a serial entrepreneur. And I have built loads of brands, whether they were for myself or for other companies. Um, the the businesses I built for myself, the where I can identify, I did not I would do it differently. Things I wish I knew then that I know now. I would have built them around my personal brand. I would have really leaned into who I was because at the end of the day, most of those businesses were they were me being a consultant. And I put a wrapper around it that was very corporate. And I built a brand that had personality, but it was not mine. And where I've seen mo people reach their level of success faster is where they've started their company by building it off of their own brand. So if I were creating a travel agency today, I would probably call it Joshua Harrell's fabulous adventures in travel. I don't know that that's a great name, but I would go somewhere. I would make sure that I had my stamp on it. And there's two reasons for that. Gaining an audience from nowhere takes a long time. But you as a human, as for whatever time you've been on this earth, you have a network. And they might not be your ideal clients, but you have a network. So you already have people who know who you are. And the great thing about us being humans is there's only one of us in the galaxy. So there's only one Joshua Harrell. So how can I be different from my competitors? It's built in. It's my DNA. That's your DNA too. So that would be my advice. If you're just starting and you're not and you really this is you're going into this not trying to build a mega corporation or even a large team. I would really consider how do you infuse yourself into your company and be the brand. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be your name, Big Travel Adventures. It doesn't mean that. It can be, it can be sunflowers and rainbows uh, travel. It could be if sunshine and rainbows is very you, right? If that is it is so on brand for you. If your friends are like, of course you're going to call the company that because when I think about you, it's sunshine and rainbows. That is a way to create a company brand or a company identity, but make sure that you are very much tied to it. And I wouldn't try to build, this is again, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't try to build a company social channel out of nowhere. I wouldn't. I have friends that I'm connected to on social media. I'd start there and I'd start to evolve those social channels to be communicating a little bit of me and a little bit about what I do. And I would become known for travel. That would be, as Joshua Harrell, I would be known for travel. Then when my business, I'm starting to see some success there. I'd still keep that personal brand going, but now I'd slowly start to build the company social. And that's a good thing, right? Have a little separation there. But I'm not going to get people it's very unlikely that I'm going to get people from my personal network to go jump over to a new social channel. It can be done, but it is not fast. If you had 100 followers on Instagram on your personal Instagram and you said, "Hey, follow my company channel," you might get seven. I'm just trying to keep it real here. So building from you is I've seen it happen over and over again that is a much easier path to follow. Nothing is super easy. I mean, there's always going to be work involved in becoming known for travel, but that is easier to start to build from than starting from zero. Again, you can do it, but it will take a lot longer. And most entrepreneurs, travel entrepreneurs, they're not starting their business for it to be, have 25 team members on the team. Most of them are not there. They are amazing travel advisors, business owners, and they have a huge network of clients and referrals. They get referrals, and it's them. When they decide to retire, they might transfer that book of business to a friend of theirs or just close the business down. But their intention was never to build this entity that would live well beyond them. So these are just some things to think about. What makes sense for you? If you are going into business with your magnificent other, that is something to factor in, right? So as a company, you would probably want to be a company, or you could do the brand as a couple, right? That can be fun too. But if you are, when you start to have other people, you still only have your brand is only one superhero. So what does that superhero need to look like? So think about the who you are if you've got a brand already. Think about who you are as a superhero today, and what do you like about it? What might be a little unclear, and start to identify, okay, what are those things that I want to work on? And this is, again, this is a part of the strategy. Now, what is your brand purpose? Next step in this process. What is your brand purpose? Now, this is not a statement of, uh, I want to make $1 million. That is not a money statement. This is the business exists to do this. And that could be to sell group travel. That could be to do mission trips, be the go-to for church groups to do mission trips. That could be honeymoons, destination weddings. That I mean, there's so many different types of niches, but the purpose of this business is uh, to offer this, this, and this, to sell this, and ultimately do this. Okay, so that means something different to everybody. Why are you in business? And the purpose, when you say purpose, sometimes that sounds a little bit like what are you going to give back to the world? And that's not what this purpose is. Why are you in business? What do you hope to accomplish with this? Are you building a business? And this is okay too. I know it contradicts what I was saying a little earlier, but if you're in business to build a business to sell it, that is that well, it's not really the brand purpose, but it's the purpose behind what what you're going to do to build this brand. You're just really identifying what what this is all for, okay? Because that is going to help you frame up what you want to do kind of going forward here. So then start to look at your brand vision. What do you what do you hope to accomplish? Now, this is is this something very altruistic? You want to help people experience the world? No, that could be a mission. That could be a mission. Make sure that the mission serves you every day. So when you wake up, that is something that you're on a mission to do. But your vision, how do you see this brand, the superhero evolving over time? Maybe you're starting at a very you're just entering the travel world, so you see it as maybe a couple of years of you learning and evolving and growing, right? But ultimately, you see yourself. Let's back up. So you're traveling, or sorry, you're working full time and you're doing this part time. And so right now, this is let's call it a side hustle. But your bigger vision is that you want to tour the world on groups that you have put together throughout the course of the year, and you become this brand, this company, whether it's you or the company identity. You become that go-to for seeing the world with Joshua. right? Like that's gonna be my that's my brand. It's I'm jumping in with both feet as an individual. So if I jump in with both feet, then where am I going to go? Well, I want to take people on tours through all over the world and experience great food and have a lot of fun and laughs. And maybe a part of my brand is that we're very, very social media focused. So whenever you go on a trip with me, man, I'm just riffing as I go here. Whenever you go on a trip with me, you're going to it's going to be well documented. Maybe I even hire a crew to capture moments. So you've got the selfie content that you're creating, and then you've got content that my team has created for you. So this is you're not only getting to experience what the world has to offer, but you're also getting it's well documented and you make all your friends jealous, which hint hint little strategy here. If I'm doing these tours and it's being promoted on social media and their friends are having like they're absolutely jealous as anything, well then I'm starting to build my audience of people who start to follow my business and then will join me on future trips. So my audience starts to grow and my client base starts to grow. I don't know. Is that a good idea? That might be. I don't know. So think about your vision. Where do you want this brand to be? And if it is your brand, your personal brand, where do you want to be? And personal branding, I mean, if you did a search for personal branding right now, you'd find so many different videos and guides on how to build your personal brand. And that's because that's what works. We've evolved as a culture to we in America, we're very generally focused on celebrity. Personal brand is a component of that. The celebrities that are mega celebrities have done a really good job of crafting their personal brand. And when if they, if they ever fall out of their character, then we're like, whoa, 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 something is wrong with the world because their brand, how they have shown up in the world has not been this way. So this is very out of character. And then there's a lot of people that like to chase that. But just think about it. It's not an ego thing, but your company brand, your personal brand, they're all woven into how your brand starts to take space in people's minds and sometimes in people's hearts. And I've witnessed travel entrepreneurs and advisors who have uh, not only done a great job of conveying their skills and the value that they provide, and been successful financially, but when they start to see feedback from their clients and they start to see social posts where they're tagged in one of their clients' adventures, that's when you know that your brand, whether it's you as a person or whether it's this company, that's where you know you've started to take a little space in someone's heart. Because I'm not gonna give credit to somebody who I don't have affection for. I buy a lot from Amazon. I wonder if you do too. I am not going to post that I got this book on Amazon. I just love Amazon. That's they don't have my heart. They have my mind because they're convenient and it 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 solves a problem for me. But they're not they're not a brand in my heart. So I love those moments where a couple maybe on their honeymoon capture a moment and they thank their advisor publicly. That's not something they have to do. Like they're all loved up. They don't need to do this, but they recognize that this experience that they're having um, is a result of them making a great decision and working with their advisor or the agency that they're working with. Um, and they want to give something back, and that means something to them. And it also means something to the advisor. Anyway, I got a little uh so let's move on to mission. So we've done what is the purpose? What does this business do? What is your vision? Where do you want to take it? And if you're just starting out, it's okay to have a big vision because big visions lead to that motivation and it helps you visualize the different milestones in your journey. And that is just as satisfying as getting those commission checks. So let's be real. Having vision is extremely helpful. And it's also very helpful with the brand strategy. If I know that this is where I want my business to be, this is what I want people to how I want people to think of my superhero brand, right? Then I'm going to make decisions today to help me get to that point. Does that make sense? So let's talk about the mission. So, what is your mission? If you've ever been in a company where they go through their mission statement, and I've done it many times. I've had people say, we need a mission statement. And I'm like, why? And well, we want to put it in the break room, and we want to put it on our career site for employee recruitment. And I'm like, okay, so is everybody committing it to memory? What is the vision for this mission statement? And most of the time, it comes down to it's not really it's not really about a mission statement, but it's defining what winning looks like. So a winning aspiration. So I'd like to take that traditional mission statement that said, we're all about these core values. I like to flip that around. What does winning look like? And that's very much tied to your vision, right? It's tied to your vision, and it's also something that you are working towards. And whether it's you every day in the morning, you're thinking about that winning aspiration, or it's a team of 75 that are working towards that winning aspiration. Because at a team of 75, you've got people doing all sorts of things. You've got operations, you've got finance, you've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got all these people, right? But and they have goals for themselves and their departments or their functions, right? But why do they even have those goals? They have those goals because of this winning aspiration that you have defined for them. Or if you're a team of people, a leadership team that you've defined. So a winning aspiration is something that you can achieve. So you can say, we did this. Okay, we have done this. That makes it that puts some guardrails on this because a poor winning aspiration would be to be the most loved travel agent in the world. Well, I I feel like that is really aspirational. And I love for you to do that, but I also would love for thousands of people to do that. So that would not be a good example of a winning aspiration. Now, the fact that you can actually achieve this winning aspiration, does sound like a goal, but it needs to be big enough that it spans several years. So it isn't a financial goal. It really it's almost, when you do a vision board or you start to the practice of manifesting, you start to imagine what things will look like when you hit or when you accomplish something, right? It's very similar to that. And I did see, let's see here. We got a comment here. Uh, Ah, Rebecca said, "What TM for what does winning look like?" Love it. Rebecca, thank you for joining this Saturday. I hope you're having a great holiday season here. So what does winning look like? Um, and if you are a solopreneur, and maybe you have a few associates under you, but if you're a solopreneur, this is where the manifesting statement. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting distracted with something on my desk. It's not anything important. But this is where I would let my mind go and don't think about your competitive analysis. Don't think about the agent that you saw or that they have achieved what you feel success should look like. Don't really think about don't have a lot of noise around and don't have a lot of judgment around you when you're doing this exercise. If this is your business and you and the brand are one and the same, which is the way I believe most business should be, um, I want you to just close your eyes and fast forward, let's say 10 years. You've been doing this, it's been building for a time. Uh, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this journey of starting a business, let alone a travel business, right? But in 10 years' time, just fast forward in your mind, and what is around you? I feel like this is manifesting coaching here, but what is around you? So it's not, I am uh, Forbes, I'm on the Forbes top list. It's not that. It's what does my home look like? I'm in home. Am I stressed about work? Am I feeling tight? Does it feel uncomfortable? Or does it feel really good? Oh, it seems like it's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. and I've got my family around me. I've got my dogs. My home might look a little different. I walk out the door and I'm not in Decatur, Georgia anymore. I'm now in the city of London. Now I'm really starting to manifest for myself. And there's a calm, easy presence or feeling that I have, and I'm taking a work call, but I'm actually talking to my chief of staff who is doing the managing of the business. But she's checking in with me because she's starting to work on some ideas for next year and wanted to know if we can schedule time to have a board meeting. Whoa, a board? What is going on? Now, I'm completely riffing here. I'm not saying that that needs to be your path, but what I'm trying to do is express to you that what does winning look like? Um, and if I'm starting this business right now, and I don't know where it might end up. I have a vision of it. I want to have a vision for myself and what does that look like? And I think 10 years is a good frame of time. 10 years can happen pretty fast. I think we can all agree. It can happen pretty fast, but it's still far enough away that you can have that long-reaching aspirational state. So if I imagine myself in that state, and here I just as I was doing my little exercise, I'm now living in London. How can I have a business in America? I'm living in London. Okay, there's some decisions that have been made. I have a board, I have a chief of staff. Well, if I've got a chief of staff, I've got to have a lot of staff. So now in that vision, I am leading a company that is, I would say, reasonably successful because I don't want to be doing this in 10 years' time if I'm stressed, right? I'm at my desk at 7 o'clock at night, working on a crisis in the Dominican Republic with a couple who found out they shouldn't be a couple while they're on the honeymoon. I'm saying it could happen, right? So, that's me imagining what my future state would be. So, for that business to be what I imagine that I would be running at that time, what am I doing? And so that can be things like if you market, if you're more regionally based in how you market your business, it could be something like to be the top agency for, I keep going to destination weddings, the top, the number one choice for destination weddings in Dallas, Texas. Okay. So can I be the number one? I don't know that I would know the sales of other agencies around me in the Dallas area. However, there are some things I think we could agree that would happen if I was the number one choice for destination weddings for the Dallas Fort Worth market. And that would be that I am probably in the local media a bit. I could be on the local news station. I could be a regular contributor in local publications. If you did a search for my brand, you would see not only I would, from a content perspective, I would own a lot of the top spots on the Google's results page, or if someone says uh, 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 travel agency specializing in destination weddings in Dallas Fort Worth in AI like Perplexity or something like that, I would come up. I would be the one that shows up there. So those are ways, you know, and everybody's going to be different. You don't necessarily, you might not market your business in a regional area, but there are things that you could define about your business with this winning aspiration that helps everyone in the company understand where you're going. And a really cool thing, and I have seen this a couple of times, I've seen companies, and it doesn't take 10 years, I've seen companies set a winning aspiration that seems so far from where they are today. But it was something that they could connect to. There are certain things that would happen to say that we have won or we are getting close to that winning aspiration. Um, so I've seen companies actually hit the mark where they can step into owning that that aspiration. They have now reached that point. They have become the top choice for destination weddings in Dallas, Fort Worth. That was my example. So then they need to reconfigure their winning aspiration, and that is okay too. Just like Laura, and I see that Laura is on the call. Laura Legg, she had shared she started her business here, and then she evolved to doing something else, and her profits have grown through making that decision, right? So her winning aspiration when she started being focused on Disney destinations would have been different from where her business is now. And we talked about that a little bit. How do you define the business when now it has a couple of different niches that it services, but overall, what is the through line, right? So she is going or was going through that evolution of how do I redefine what winning looks like for me, for her. Sorry. I start to step in. I wish I could be an actor because sometimes I feel like I try to step into other people's shoes. I I hope that's a gift. I don't know. All right. So mission, think winning aspiration. How do you know you're winning? And also, I'd like to clarify if this is only ever going to be you in this business, okay, you are going to be the solo entrepreneur and operator of your business. You do not want it to be bigger than that, and that is absolutely okay. Okay. That winning aspiration could be very, very personal. So when I was talking about manifesting and imagining where you're going to be when you feel like I've won, right? That could be extremely personal. That could be I have reached X amount of money, or I've reached this stage of financial freedom or financial security, whatever you're looking for. Um, and I am full time in my business, so I'm no longer part time or working another full time job. Um, and I'm traveling. So part of that full-time work is I'm fully traveling whenever I can. Because a lot of people get into the business to be able to travel. And then some people become so successful that, they've got, I have to always be careful about defining success because it is different for everybody. But they become so uh, profitable, popular, um, that they never get to travel because they're now chained to their desk. So, so having a winning aspiration in that example, like that is, I guarantee you that's not why someone got into the business. But having a winning aspiration right there would help you check in with yourself and say, wait a minute, this is not winning. What do I need to do to change? So see why all this brand strategy work helps. It's helping you stay focused on what you have strategically thought out for your business and making decisions according to those decisions, I guess, or to that structure, to those pillars. All right, so let's get into your brand values. So again, I was making fun of mission statements, the big corporation mission statements, and how they have their values. But it is important for your brand, especially when it comes down to not necessarily the visual cues, the visual design of your brand, but how your brand speaks, how your superhero speaks, I think is directly tied to the values. Now, how, if you have a team of people, how they work together, that's the what you want to set as your brand values. This is what we're going to be about. We're going to be about radical truth, radical transparency. Those are values. Those are brand values. Um, and that helps the team deliver what your brand is promising. Okay, so those values are still important, but I also think that the are you a fun brand? Are you uh rainbows, unicorns? Are you that brand? Or are you more stoic? Are you more of that the wise choice um, in international travel for businesses? Uh, think about some values that will define how you operate as a business, but then will also help you convey your brand identity with the world. So it seems like an exercise of like, oh, well, it's just me. I don't need to. That's for big companies. Values are for big companies. No, you have values as a human being. And you need to define how you want to operate your business and how the things that are connected to your brand that you want to be known for. So these are not your value proposition. This is not what you deliver to your clients. This is how you deliver it, how you exist in this space. What are those core values that you as a human being, as a business owner, or the owner of your book of business, if you're an advisor who works for an agency, and there can be values for your agency, and you as an advisor within that agency have values that should sync up with the agency's values. But we all know when we work with different companies we work with, and we work with an individual, there's something we like about Mark that works at the bank. And what are the things that when I think of Mark, what are the things that stand out for me? And just take a moment to jot those down. It does not have to be complex, and again, it's not set in stone, but think about it. Think about why you're doing this business. What do you want this business to look like in the future? What is the your winning aspiration, and how are you going to accomplish that? Like, what do you have to stay true to in order to deliver on this grand vision of your brand? Okay. I'd love to know if any of you have done this work already, specifically around winning aspiration, or if you've done the mission statement route. You've got a mission statement. You're going to tweak it a little bit based on the what does winning look like for you. Drop that down in the chat, the Q&A. Love to see what that might look like right now. So once you've done all of that work, and if you've joined any of these sessions in the past, you know that I always talk about uh, your buyer personas and defining who your target market is. So before we even get to that, where what does the market look like that you're trying to reach? So not necessarily who those individuals are and their personalities, but are you are you looking for Gen X moms who are executives, right? Who live in, maybe we're doing regional, maybe live in the Midwest. I mean, go for a bigger region, right? But that is a market, right? And that's pretty well defined. So once I've done that, and it can look different it will look different for almost every business. There can be some similarities. Then that's when I go and break down my target market and my target clients, and those buyer personas, customer avatars. They've got many different names. But once I've defined that meta level group that I'm going after, then I start to break down the personalities, the demographics. I mean, Gen X, that's a part of a demographic, right? But there can be subsets of Gen X, and there can be subsets of executives. There can be different types of executives, and there can be personalities that are not your target. Yes, they can have all the attributes that you've said your target market or the market should have, but they're not your ideal client. So when we get down to once you've defined the broader market that you're going after, then identify who the ideal client is. And I feel like that's a much better way than target market, because if you are saying this is my ideal client, that's already assuming that you have won them over. You've attracted them. Your brand's gravitational pull has now sucked them in, and you now have them, and they are the people that you enjoy working with. That is so important because you can spend a lot of time with unhappy people, and it could have nothing to do with your service and what you deliver, or your brand, right? It's really them. And oftentimes you don't know who those people are until you've accidentally got them into your funnel, and you're working with them. So as if you're just getting started, you're going to set up who you think the market is, and then who your ideal client is based on your some of your research, what your gut is telling you, what maybe people you have let be trusted advisors help guide your thinking. But until you actually get people through your funnel and they become your customer, you don't know if you've really clearly defined that ideal client. And I think anybody who is listening live or watching this on demand, uh, you've you've had some experience with people who are you don't ever want again, and you want to figure out, you want to diagnose how did they get through? How did I get them? Right? But you don't know, you really don't know the exacts until you have experienced it. I think anyone will attest to that. You have an idea in your mind and then doesn't quite come to fruition. So spending the time to, and this is something like I said, you can do it before you start your business, or if you're doing a refresh on your brand, think about this now. Think about the people and call if it's in your brain. Nobody else needs to hear it. If Susan is awful, I never want a Susan again. Well, what needs to be true within my brand and the way I market my brand uh, and the way and who I actually accept as customers? What needs to change so I can get no more Susans? Because you just don't need a Susan. Okay. So whether you're refreshing or you're just starting out, it is a great exercise to evaluate. Okay. Now, I talked a little bit about competitor research in the competitive analysis when I was talking about imagining your brand as a human being, superhero. Started talking about the battle cards. So some advice here on competitive analysis. Uh, you are not by scoping out other people, you are not going to let your perceptions, the conclusions that you draw based on visiting their website and their social media, to you got to promise me this. You're not going to let it be this this overarching, not overarching. I don't want this to, I don't want looking at your competitors or people who are in your adjacent area. I don't want them to be a part of, we've all got an internal judge. It's Judgy Judgerson. I mean, she's just awful. But we don't want to compare ourselves to other people, because that will really mess with your mindset as an entrepreneur. You just can't let it in. Be aware. What was that thing in Avatar? I see you. See them. It's okay to see them, but there's only one you. There's only one you. So be aware of them, but do you. So doing this competitive analysis is not saying I'm copying that. It is not saying that is the only way to evaluate success is I've got to look exactly like that. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And I'm saying it that way because I've done it so many times. I am very well aware of it. I've done it so many times. Again, I look back at all the businesses I started, and most of them failed. Most of them failed miserably. And they failed because of my mindset. My mindset just messed me up. I evaluated my success and I compared my accomplishments to someone else. And that someone else might not have even been a nice person. It could have been a company with horrible values. But I that messed me up, and then I would get demotivated, and I would just everything would fall apart. So I'm saying this. I know that you're not going to remember me saying this, but when you're doing your competitive analysis, be very, very objective. Look, visit their website. Do searches. I always suggest that you do the search in private browsing or cognito mode. So the search engine is not taking into consideration searches that you've done before, because that can really skew things. Whenever you're checking how you rank, if you do a brand search for your company, if you're doing it from your normal browser, without it being in private browsing, it's going to show that you're number one. That's because you probably have searched your company before and clicked on the link. So when you go into Cognito or private browsing, then you're able to kind of have a clean slate and see where you really show up. So when you are searching around websites, your competitor websites, always go in private browsing. Make sure they're not they're able to track you. Make sure that they're not able to track you, and poke around. Take notes. What stands out to you? Some things could be brand related. Some things could be website functionality, how people can work with that company. Those things all, there can be different bits of inspiration. There could also be some critique that you have of, wow, they make it really difficult for me to talk to somebody. I don't want to be that. So when you're doing a competitive analysis, it doesn't need to be complex. I like to take an Excel spreadsheet and just have a column for each competitor that I'm looking at. And then I put my company right in the middle. I don't put anything there when I'm doing my competitive analysis. I just start listing bullet points. After I do one, then I kind of look for some of the same things, same categories, different topics. I start to look for those across all the companies that I'm looking for. And then once I get that all together, then I kind of look across. I make color code things that I want to, maybe connect the dots between multiple brands, like all the brands in our competitive landscape do this. I feel like that is something I should do, but how could I do that maybe a little bit better? And in some cases, I might not be able to, right? But even thinking about it is more than I would have done if I hadn't done the competitive analysis. So it just helps you understand where you could potentially sit, or where you sit if you've been in business, where you sit and where there might be opportunities. Now, if you have been in business, this is the evolution part. If you have been in business and you've kind of done this comparison, and now you're so in tune with the marketplace, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I miss this one service, this one product that I could be offering, and I didn't, right? That those moments, they're good and bad, because you're like, wow, that's an easy thing. I can easily incorporate that into to my brand. However, then you're like, why didn't I think about it before? Done it. I'm just saying, I've done it. So anyway, do that. It's never too late to do competitive analysis. And then I would say try to set a reminder for yourself to do that on an annual basis. You don't need to be checking in all the time. Obviously, you're probably aware of what your competitors might be doing. But just do a check-in every once in a while, because somebody will do a brand refresh and you might get inspired. Somebody might change the way they do something and you're like, I wonder why they did that. And then that causes you to look into things. Just very, very helpful. Don't compare yourself in terms of success to your competitors. Just be aware of them. You'll find inspiration there. It should not tear you down. You should find inspiration there. Okay. All right. So from all that, then you've done a lot of work now that you can start to think about how you're positioning your brand. So in the mix of your competitors in the marketplace, how do you position yourself, your brand, as the solution? What are you solving, right? How do you talk about your brand that is different from those competitors? You might have three competitors, you might have 1,500 competitors. I'm not saying you need to search 1,500. I think five is a good number to look at. But how taking five that you've looked at and thinking about your vision or your purpose, your vision, your winning aspiration, your values, uh, who you're targeting, how are you going to position your brand? How are you going to talk about your brand? And this is not getting into the words you use, but this is what you're trying to communicate as your brand. So with all that information, you should be able to position your brand the way that it will help people understand where you fit into the grand scheme of things. And that is something that I find it's a lot of work that you do with your elevator pitch goes into this. That's the story that the way you sum up your business in the amount of time it takes to get from the ground floor of the building to whatever floor you're going to. It's just a really simple statement. And believe me, we'll work on elevator pitches in the future. But you craft that elevator pitch based on how you're positioning your brand. Um, and think about it this way. Let me break it down into consumer brand. Um, I want to say it's Pampers and Huggies, the diapers, right? They're diapers. We can all agree they're diapers. But one is their pricing strategy is they're pricing a little higher. One is a little more affordable. So the way they position that brand, the different brands, is the Pampers is I don't want to say high end, but a little more polished, a little more sophisticated. I don't know, as sophisticated as diapers can be. But then Huggies is more affordable, more accessible, a little more laughing, a little more fun. Haha. So so that is positioning, each brand is positioned themselves in a different space. So if you can think about how does your agency or you as an advisor, how do you position yourself against the competitors? If you're both fun, rainbows and unicorns, what is the thing that you need to add to your positioning to separate yourself from the other fun rainbows and unicorns? Okay, something to think about. All right. And then we start to get into from the positioning, then we start getting into the story and the brand personality. Are you, I'm Batman, or are you, I'm Wonder Woman, and I go for justice? Um, that was a really bad Wonder Woman impression, and I am such a fan of Wonder Woman. That was sad. Uh, but from there, there's different. You start to look at your brand archetype. So, what is the Carl Jung? I think it is, or Young. I think it's Jung. I think he was a psychotherapist. He came up with these archetypes that for your personality. Are you the wise, sage person? Um, are you I can't remember all the different ones. I will make sure that that's in the follow-up document. But there's a whole chart of these different archetypes. You know, what does your superhero, where does your superhero fit in this the brand archetype? Then get into the brand personality, then the messaging. Now we start to get into the words that you're using, the presence, the how do people what are the things that what is the essence of the brand? What is that through line that everyone can attach to? And think about brands that you use. I use the diapers example, but there's so many brands that you use. Even in the luxury consumer goods space, there's brands that you use. In the organic space, there's brands that you use. Food space, there's brands that you use. There's so many. We are such we are so engrossed in brands or surrounded by brands. And I can buy, oh, here's a good one. I can buy Planters peanuts, or I can buy peanuts in a clear container from Publix that they've just slapped on a label that came out of a digital printer, right? So there might be a little bit of a price difference, right? But Planters has been around ever since I was a kid. I I don't necessarily have love for it, but I that peanut man, the blue, the red, I those are things that are there in my mind. With the Publix one, I don't really have a feeling about it. I don't even have I don't even associate with Publix. It's just there. So Planters has this essence. I wouldn't say it's better. I would not say it's better. I know that I'm getting peanuts. That's that doesn't factor in to my decision, but there is a feeling I have of connection to something that I can identify with Planters, and with the Publix, I don't have that. The little deli label, I don't have a connection to it. So these are that's where this is where we start getting into the visual elements. So what do you want your essence? What's the essence of your brand? Can you answer that question in one word? What is the essence of your brand? If you haven't defined it, no big deal, but you can't. So, as I said, we're going to talk the next two sessions, well, beyond two sessions, but next week we're going to talk about brand identity. We're really going to take the visual elements. We're going to talk about your brand name. We're going to talk about how you present yourself to the world. So we're going to dig into that. But I hope taking you through some of these steps and having a conversation about these different components of brand strategy will help you either build a new brand that you're building, or do a little a self-evaluating of your existing brand, and make little tweaks. Again, think evolution, not revolution, because revolution confuses people, and you don't want to do that. So well, I'm going to wrap up. But if there was any aha moment or TM moment that you had, or something that you're going to action within the next 7 days, drop that down in the Q&A or the chat. If I don't know if the chat is working, but drop that down, because I'd love to know if there was something that sparked your interest and desire to take action over the next week. I know the holidays are upon us, and all the holidays are this week, but if there's sometimes it's small moves, right? It's just small moves. So if you've had any of those moments, drop it down in the chat. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you again for joining live or watching this on demand. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please search World Via Travel Network on YouTube and subscribe. Like this video if you're watching on demand. Help us out there. If you have not yet joined our private Facebook group for travel marketeers, just go to Facebook and search Travel Marketeers, not Travel Marketeering, Travel Marketeers, and you'll find our private Facebook group. Say hello to the group in there. I've said this. We just got it started a couple of months ago. But we've got a lot of stuff in the works. My teammate Andrea and I have some really cool plans for the not only the group but also the content that we're going to be bringing you on these sessions. So I hope you stay tuned and join us. And if you can't join us live, then of course you can watch on demand. It does sound like we've got a few chats here. Oh, let's see here. Oh, we have a lot. Sorry. Carol, uh, thank you. Uh, Happy holidays back at you. I love it. Laura, thanks for everything. Have a fabulous holiday. You too. And Helen, great session. TM, happy holidays. And Rebecca, I'm going to end on you here. with I see myself changing labels depending on clients. I may sell the same trip package as a planter's trip with classic vacations or an equate trip with Expedia Tap. Same exact trip, but I have to know my clients and their expectations. That is excellent. Ah, Rebecca, I thank you all for joining. And Rebecca, thank you for bringing that full circle on the planters and equate. I like that. All right, guys. Happy holidays to you. Whatever you celebrate, I just hope that you have an amazing time and use this time to give yourself a big hug. And you are awesome. You are phenomenal. And you rock. So hold space with that because you deserve this time with your family and friends. And I just wish you the best. And I cannot wait to talk to you next week because we're talking about the second pillar, and that is brand identity. All right. See you real soon. Take care, guys. Bye.